This video is going to be about another creative list building hack that you may or may not have seen before. We recently got a customer is a security guard agency, right? So they're an established business. They were getting a lot of business via Google Ads, but it's very expensive, right? They were trying some LinkedIn ads, but that wasn't working for them. So they thought, why can't we do some organic cold email and LinkedIn outreach to see if there's people who are interested in hiring our guards? And the focus for them for this particular year was schools, right? As we've known since always, and we know particularly now, it's not a particularly safe place. The gun laws are very relaxed, so you need safety. If you're an American institution, particularly a school, you need the extra safety. For them, this year's focus was to try to find schools in their local area who they can supply school resource officers to. This customer came in and told us that they've tried LinkedIn outreach before, but it didn't work. So I asked them, like, how did they try it? Like, what kind of people did they reach out to? So they said, what we did was we just searched on LinkedIn. They put in the industry filter there, which is education. Then the second filter that they put in was administration or head of security and all of that. They got quite a few results on LinkedIn, but the problem was that 99% of them were irrelevant, right? Because the way LinkedIn does its filtering using the industry filter, it's very broad and it leads to a lot of very untargeted results. Let me show you what they did so that you can also understand why the approach was so flawed and how we can actually fix it. So you just go to LinkedIn. If you're not an expert in list building, you might be tempted to do something like this. You just go to Sales Navigator and then you go to lead filters, and let's say you pick the geography as, let's say, Maricopa County, right? And then what you pick the industry as education. Yeah, education, let's say primary and secondary education, right? Because you're targeting schools. Yeah. And then let's say you want decision makers, right, at these schools. So you need something like, yeah. So you see, even let's say administrator or chief security officer or something like that. Yeah, let's just take an example of all the people who come up, and then I'll show you why this doesn't really work, right? So you've put in the filter of primary and secondary education, and then there's so many, irrelevant people coming up. So this particular person is in, obviously gas, oil and gas, right? But they're showing it here. This person works at a church, right? But they're showing them here. This person is in a sports company. They're showing them here. So your outreach wouldn't clearly work because you're reaching out to the wrong people, right? This person is working at some kind of electric power corporation. To put it mildly, LinkedIn is shit. What would have been a better approach here is to build a more targeted list from a more reputable data source. So if you think a little bit, you can figure out, right? One of the best ways to do it is actually Google Maps, right? So if you put in schools in Arizona County, you'll get a very targeted list. And then from there, you can figure out, okay, these are the schools that are in Arizona County. So let me figure out now who are the decision makers working at this school. Perfect. So this was the particular table that we did. Find local businesses using Google Maps. So the very first thing that we did was we used this particular source, find local businesses using Google Maps. We figured out the latitude, longitude, and use the API. So this is how you build out the list. So it gave us a list of all the schools in this area, and we can even go to Google Maps and have a check, right, whether this actually is a school in the area we're supposed to reach out to. Then finally we figure out the website. It also gives us the phone number. If you're not able to reach out on LinkedIn, you can just give them a call, ask them if they have a school resource officer or would they be open to hiring. You have the address, you have the Google rating, how many reviews, and this is where the magic happens. So using Clay, you can actually find an enriched person using Google search. So we figured out, okay, for search on Google, like these are the titles that our client was interested in reaching out to, which is chief security officer or director of security or school admin or facility manager or operations manager at this school in Arizona. So this gives us directly the name of those people on LinkedIn. And this is, 90% accurate as opposed to directly building a list on Sales Navigator, which is roughly 10% accurate. That's how you figure it out. And then once you have all of these pieces in place, you figure out something called a campaign. Okay, perfect. So this was the campaign we ran for them, decision makers at schools in Arizona. This is the list that we got from Clay. It has their LinkedIn URL and their names. This is the sequence. We send them a blank connection request. We wait 1 hour and then we send a message, does your school have a school resource officer first name, or have you been considering it? A message 2 days later, I'm asking because we provide highly trained and professional school resource officers. We've been in business for over 30 years. We've got the highest rating in the industry. and the largest training academy, who'd be the right person at your school. If you're interested, we can arrange for a free emergency response training. Everyone knows we all need to be prepared with what's been happening in this country. So you're referring the Donald Trump shooting as well. And then finally, any interest in that free emergency response training, we can chat specifics over a cup of coffee. Already have your cup here. So this sends them a personalized image. So this really works, right? Like we've just started this campaign about, a week ago, and we're already seeing some responses come in, some positive, and I'm sure, this will be a very fruitful campaign for this person. Just to recap, the key thing to figure out when you're doing cold outreach is to how to build a clean list. So you don't have to restrict yourself to LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, or Apollo. You can be creative. You can scrape Google Maps. You can scrape companies that are hiring. You can scrape, companies that have recently hired, and then build out a very clean list and reach out to people in a very targeted way. Volume isn't king, relevance is king, right? And if you're relevant, your target market is much more likely to have a favorable view of you. So that's it from me from in this video. See you in the next one. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button. Again, only 5% of you are subscribed. So I don't want you to miss out on more amazing content.